Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Trying to hit 50k subscribers over here, so that subscription would be much appreciated. A lot of you guys have been asking recently if the deep dive channel is dead because it has been over 100 days since our most previous upload. It is not, don't worry. We are dropping a hater manifesto at the end of the month, so please keep a lookout for that. Literally the best thing you could possibly do to support me, if you care about that, is watching that video when it comes out. But with that said, in today's video I want to talk about Sacramento Kings. I want to talk about the Sacramento Kings, which I'm going to title this video something along the lines of "The Sacramento Kings are a team that exists," because that pretty much references the place that they are right now. It also references the place that they have been historically, but the Sacramento Kings are just in an especially weird situation, and I would argue that the current Sacramento Kings roster is in fact the most Sacramento Kings roster that there has ever been. So obviously we got the Zach LaVine trade that went down for De'Aaron Fox in that 3-team deal. Their idea of replacing De'Aaron Fox was, hey, we'll get another guy who can score the ball at the very least. And surely that should work all the same, except of course it did not. And the Sacramento Kings ended up going 14-18 with Zach LaVine. Now, they weren't necessarily doing all that great before him either. Part of that was because I think De'Aaron Fox just missed a significant chunk of time before the trade even went down. But it made it very clear he did not want to be there. And honestly, the moment that that trade went down was pretty much the end, because Zach LaVine's a decent player. He is certainly going to score points efficiently enough, especially when he's not in this primary role, which is exactly what he's done in the time that he's been in Sacramento. But it's not going to be the same as a guy who's doing that scoring and being a really good playmaker. And it's also, more importantly, DeMar DeRozan was here. So they're just repeating the same duo of the Chicago Bulls and really kind of replicating the Chicago Bulls formula in general. And if there were any team in the league to copy their formula, the Bulls would be nowhere near the top of that list. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they just don't complement each other all that well. LaVine complements DeRozan better because LaVine is a great and high volume three-point shooter, but Zach likes to have the ball in his hands a good bit too, and when that happens, DeMar DeRozan is really not providing a whole lot of value on the offensive end, and then of course he's also not much of a defender. Now, DeMar is at the very least on a hell of a contract. I would argue that $25 million a year for DeMar DeRozan is entirely reasonable, especially because the option in 26-27 is not fully guaranteed. In fact, it seems like none of that contract is guaranteed, so I don't know why. I guess it's one of those weird player and team option hybrids. But either way, you're paying Zach LaVine $50 million a year to score 22 points per game, not be a particularly strong defender or a particularly strong playmaker. You are also paying $45 million a year for Domantas Sabonis, who is another player who is like, yeah, this guy's good, but is he worth that? Probably not. It's just a roster made up of dudes who are good, but not at all meant to like complement each other. And they're certainly not meant to be like some of the better players of the core. Like Domantas Sabonis can be one of the better players of your team's core for sure, rhyming accidentally. But like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan should not be one of your top 2 or 3 players in today's game. And, you know, Malik Monk should not be as pivotal to your offense as he is. There actually have been some trade rumors with him. And if you look at how this roster is structured, it represents the Chicago Bulls to a T. You have your white big man, who is a pretty good playmaker. Sabonis is better than Vucevic for what it's worth, but, you know, filler center, definitely far from ideal. And then you got Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, and then Malik Monk is essentially just Kobe White, and Keegan Murray is a better version of Patrick Williams, but nevertheless still like this idea of a pretty disappointing forward, I think from, if not the same draft class, like a year before, a year after. But he's better than Patrick Williams, but he is still very disappointing, similar to Patrick Williams. I presume they've picked up his option because the thing that I'm looking at is still highlighting his contract as the option when it should have just been picked up by now, but one way or the other. Yeah, that it's a fine lineup, not the worst lineup in the world by any means. It might be one of the worst ones in the NBA, but it doesn't feature any NBA players who are bad. All of these players individually are good players. I just don't think they complement each other particularly well, and they absolutely have a very limited ceiling to them, because we're also talking about a roster that does not have particularly strong defense. In that starting lineup, Keegan Murray is a pretty good defender. That's about it. Domantas Sabonis is better than I think some people give credit on the defensive end, but he is by no means a particularly good defensive player, especially at the center position. And Keon Ellis kind of gets shafted in this rotation. Now, I believe he got more opportunity when the head coach switched, because that was a big thing this year. A big reason why I understood the firing of Mike Brown was that he was not playing Keon Ellis, and that's absolutely absurd because he's their best perimeter defender and a very good three-point shooter. That was definitely extremely questionable by Mike Brown. Also, it's crazy that Keon Ellis is listed as 6'6", because there's not a shot in hell that guy is 6'6". And you look at this bench, other than Keon Ellis, there's nothing of note. You have Devin Carter, who I think had some moments last year, but overall, not a particularly strong rookie showing. Maybe you get some development from him. You have Nick Clifford, who I guess was probably their draft pick, a senior out of Colorado State. So definitely not some guy who's going to have like some crazy upside. Where was he picked in the draft? 24th overall. Yeah, maybe that guy ends up being something. You have Terrence Davis, who still manages to be on this team year after year, even after he went away for a pro league and then he played one game last year, but he's still here. Very weird. And Isaac Jones, another guy on the contract. And then basically that's it. You just have a hollow ass roster with no real bench. You're banking on a second-year player and a rookie being key contributors off of that bench immediately. You're also paying Dario Saric $5 million a year. He's your biggest contract off of the bench. It's just like, why? That's the way that I feel about the Sacramento Kings every time I look at them. Just why? And when I reflect upon the last couple of years of this team, they were the most exciting team in the league 2 years ago. Right? Yeah, 2 years ago sounds right. And they failed to make the playoffs again the year after that because of, I think, the West got more difficult. And then after that, De'Aaron Fox is like, fuck this, I'm out. And I do kind of feel like he hit that button just a tad prematurely, enough that I understand why Sacramento Kings fans do not like him anymore. And I understand that it was kind of shady the way that he went to San Antonio, but I also can't exactly blame him for wanting to get ahead of spending the rest of his career on a Sacramento Kings team that was probably going to consistently not make the playoffs. I'm not going to harp on it too much here because I actually plan on making a video revisiting the Halliburton trade. In hindsight, probably should have traded De'Aaron Fox. You were farther away from having to pay him, and Halliburton was honestly leading towards a more favorable archetype just as such an excellent three-point shooter. And while De'Aaron Fox also progressively slashed less and less and less as time went on, but hindsight's a bitch, and I thought it was a fine deal at the time because Sabonis was good. I don't know. I kind of have a distaste for offensive centers who aren't good enough on offense to justify the limitations that come with their defense. Like, I see some people be like, why can't Sabonis be good if Jokic is good? Because Jokic is not that great of a defender. Well, he is many a mile ahead of Sabonis as an offensive player. So it makes up for that difference. No such difference is being made up by Sabonis. DeMar DeRozan's mid. Zach LaVine is mid. Malik Monk is fine. Keegan Murray is fine. Like, it's just a roster of mid and fine for a shitload of money just so that they can get the 11th seed in the Western Conference. It is pretty sad. I am sorry for Sacramento Kings fans, and frankly, you are well within your right to not be a fan of this team anymore. I am not going to be the one to judge you for it. But let me know how you're feeling right now. If you're a Kings fan, I'm sure there are some of you among you who are finding a way to be optimistic, because if you didn't have the capacity to find optimism in bleak territory, then you probably wouldn't be a Sacramento Kings fan.